Hi all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Ollie, and the video that we're looking at today is we are putting two Singer Stylists from 1970s head to head to see which one's coming out best, and we're going to start right now. First up, we've got the machine that's in this cabinet here. Now if we look at the cabinet for a moment, it's in an okay kind of condition. Somebody's kept the lid shut by putting sellotape on it, which is never a good idea because what it does is it removes the finish on the surface. If we open it up, hopefully I've left enough room to clear the next cabinet. No, not quite. There you go. Right, now to get a machine out of a cabinet is relatively simple. You pull this up first, gently lift the machine, get it stuck on the wire, there you go. Put that back down and then just drop it into place like that. Now this machine is a Singer Stylist 413. If we take a look at the front of the cabinet for a minute, you'll see that right across the front there's a false drawer, which makes this a bit of a useless cabinet because there's nowhere for you to store your accessories that would have come with the machine, which means they're long gone. They've been lost years before. So the only thing that actually came with this machine is the foot that it's wearing. Now when it comes to Singer Stylist 413s, there are in fact two. The first one is a zigzag only machine. It came out between 1972 and 1978 and it has a stretch stitch and it's green. The second option with Singer Stylist 413s is still a zigzag machine. It came out in 1972 and it was a two-tone, kind of a light grey and beige colour, and more importantly it had a flexi stitch. Now of the two options I think this is the latter. Although it's a little bit faded, it does kind of have a beigey light grey kind of two-tone cover of paint finish going on. Now the 413s and the machine that I'll show you in a minute are often confused for the Singer Touch and Sews, which were around at about the same time. They're not. They're a different product range. The Touch and Sews refer to models that are in the 600 or 700 series, and they usually have what's called a wind in place bobbin, which means that you leave the bobbin in the machine and it just winds it for you. And that was one of the biggest problems with the Touch and Sew series. But the series that we're talking about today is the Stylist, so let's get back to it. I've zoomed you in a little bit so that you can see the machine better. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this model has got a flexi stitch, which enables you to do different styles of stitching. You've got a rip-rack stitch, you've got an overcast stitch, and you've also got a straight stretch stitch. This particular model isn't a Santa-matic, it's got a straight down, straight up foot bar here. It has also got the option to move where your needle is, so you can either have it on the left, in the centre, or over to the right. And obviously you've got your different zigzag widths. If you want to do a straight stitch on this machine, because it's a zigzag default machine, which means it only does zigzag, you have to put your stitch width over to the 0. So although it is still doing a zigzag, it's so slim that it looks like a straight stitch. If we take a close look at the top of the machine, you'll notice that it's actually got two thread spools. This one's actually been broken off, so the plastic bit's still stuck in the machine. But what this enables you to do, and one of the key features of this particular model, is it's capable of doing twin needle stitching. So instead of having to use your bobbin holder like I do on Jerome, you've actually got the two spools that can hold two separate reels of thread. It's actually got a really nice gadget over here by the bobbin winder. Now on most machines, modern ones in particular, you usually have to push that across with your finger and then push it back again. But on this one, you've got a handy little lever that will move that for you, and it says what wind when you want to do the bobbin and sew for when you want to sew. I think that's adorable. Now as you look at this machine, and with the machine that we'll look at in a minute, you'll notice there's quite a few differences between these and Grandma from 1912. We're starting to get into when sewing machines are starting to look like more of what we're used to seeing. Another difference with this particular machine is what we've looked at so far are either vibrating shuttles or sewing machines that take class 15 bobbins. This particular machine takes a class 66 bobbin, which is this one, and because it's a top loading or a drop in bobbin machine, it takes plastic bobbins. Now I know that for two reasons. Number one, it's a top loading machine and they do tend to take plastic bobbins, and number two, it says so in the manual. See? Transparent bobbins, that's plastic. Now sometimes it's a bit tricky to tell the difference between a 66 and a 15 because they are slightly similar. If you have a look at the ones that I've got on my hand at the minute, I'll just get rid of the needle. This is a 66 bobbin, that's a plastic one. And this one is a metal 66 bobbin. Whereas this one with a red thread on it, that's a 15. Now if I pop them on my hand, you should be able to see that there's a slight difference in the top of the bobbins. You see how this one has a slightly domed top? That's the 66. And the 15, which is this one with the cotton on, that's got a flat top. So that's how you tell your bobbins apart, and it's the same with the metal one, that's got a dome top too. Another great thing about this particular machine is it can do buttonholes. Now it doesn't do the buttonholes that we're used to. You just push a button and you've got automatic buttonholes. You do have to adjust the knobs yourself and work out how big you want your buttonhole, but you've still got the facility to do that, which is a good thing. Now it's got to be said that for a second-hand machine, this one has got just a few issues. The first one is this bit of wire sticking out of the side here. This is a bit of an indication that somebody at some point in the past has had this machine apart and not put it back properly, because that hanging about like that is a bit of a hazard, because you could easily get that caught up in your balance wheel, so it's not supposed to be like that. Another thing, if we check out the tension discs here, this particular model can be fiddly to thread, which is why I've left a little bit of thread in it so I can remember which way round and which bit the thread's supposed to go through first on that bit, because even the manual doesn't make it abundantly clear. Another thing is this one doesn't have reverse, so you still have to slow forward a little bit, lift your needle out, lift your foot up, pull the fabric back to the start, and then go over your stitches again. And it's also got inside here plastic gears. Now the plastic gears can be replaced, and you can buy them from places like eBay or sewingpartsonline.com. I'll pop a link in the description box from the places that I normally get plastic gears from. There is also a YouTube channel called Andy Tube, who he does repair and maintenance videos on the older vintage machines, and he's well worth checking out if you've got a vintage machine and you need to know how to fix something like the gears, for instance. Now another issue with this particular model, which I didn't find out until I tried to sew with it, is the needles that it likes. Now this is the needle that it came with. It's a little bit bent, a little bit rusty, seen better days. Now the first thing that you should do when you've bought a second-hand machine is immediately swap out that needle for a brand new one, because you don't know how much life is left in that needle or how often it's been used or anything. So I did that, and I swapped it out for my usual brand, which is Smetch. I like these because they normally work in any machine, but for some reason this machine wouldn't take Smetch. It would not fit inside the needle bar, it was too thick. So I thought was going around the twist at one point because I thought, why will the old needle fit but the new needle won't? So I swapped brands. I actually tried it with one of these. This is a Class A needle and it fits like a dream. So this particular model likes Class A. Who knew that sewing machines were fussy about needles? Needles? With these machines, the needle goes in the flat side to the back. Now, when you're threading sewing machine needles, your thread always goes towards the flat side, so that means that this one threads from front to back. Now the tricky bit is this little wiggly bit here. The thread comes through the thread guide, down around the tension discs, then there's like a little metal lever just there that you have to go under, and then back down through this spring and up through this guide here, and then through the take-up lever and down to the three thread guides there at the bottom. There's one, there's a little loop right at the top of the needle pole, there's the usual little slot just above the needle, and then it's through the needle, and then you just pull the threads to the back as you would normally do. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to fire this one up and give it a whirl. Turning it on by the on-off switch. I don't know whether you can see that, but the little lights come on underneath to show that it's got power going to it. I've got a piece of fabric and I'm just going to pop under there and put that down. Grab hold of the threads at the back and try and stay out of the way so you can see what's happening. Now this machine has got a little bit of a problem which will become apparent in a little while. Actually, I think I'll go the other side just a second. Okay, ready to go. Did you hear that? You hear that whirring noise? Now, there's one of two things happening with that whirring noise. It either means that A, the belt's loose, so it's not making the motor go around fast enough to actually give it enough oomph to sew, or the motor's actually on the way out. And that's one of the things that you need to bear in mind when you're buying a second-hand machine, and that's the sort of noise that you are listening for. Let's see if we can get it to go. Okay, we're going to try it on zigzag. Take a closer look at the stitching. You see what I mean about the straight stitch having a slight wobble effect to it. What the machine's actually trying to do is it's trying to do a zigzag, but it's set on a 0 width, so it's a really fine zigzag and it kind of looks like a straight stitch from a distance. This is the zigzag. Now obviously I could have adjusted the tension to get a bit less puckering on that, but it hasn't done too badly. Now if we have a look at the back, that's actually not a bad row of stitching, and the feed dogs took the fabric through relatively easily and in a straight line, although this is a bit of a slippery fabric. But did you notice that what I actually did to stop it making that whirring noise and to start sewing was I turned the hand wheel by about a quarter to half a turn, just to get that motor back in a place where it could kick in and start sewing, which kind of suggests to me that again it could be one of two issues. It could either be the belt that's too loose, or it's on its way out, or it could be the motor's not strong enough and it needs a new motor. Moving on from the 413 for a moment, the next one we're going to look at is this one. It's in a similar kind of cabinet. The good thing about this one though is that although these two drawers are false, this one gives you a useful place to keep your accessories, which is why this one's got slightly more accessories with it than the last one. In fact, it's jam-packed with all sorts of gizmos. Opens up in the same way, only this one's got two leaves. If we move that, lift the machine up and out, put that down and just lower it down like that. In a similar way to the 413, excuse me, there are two models that go under the 476 banner too. Maybe Singer ran out of numbers at one point. This particular 416 is capable of doing a 4-step buttonhole. It's also got 4 built-in stitches. It takes plastic 66 bobbins. I know that because it's a top loader and it says so in the manual. The other 476 is actually white. Now, you might not look it, but this is actually two-tone. This bit's grey and this bit's a bit of a yellowy beige colour. Now, the one that's the two-tone is the 476K, and it isn't just the colour that suggests to me that this is the 476K, it's also the fact that it says made in Great Britain on the back. Just like the 413, this one is a zigzag only machine, so if you want to do straight stitch you have to put your stitch width on 0. It too has got plastic cams which can be changed. Check out Andy Lube on YouTube and he'll tell you how to go about doing that. It also takes my favourite brand of needle, Schmetch. The bobbin winder on this one is actually on the front of the machine, and it also has a handy little lever to move it over into the bobbin position. You've got your stitch length changes, you've got your needle position control, and you've also got a patterned stitch selector even. And as well as that, just at the bottom of this you've got your buttonhole selection. Right, let's see it in action before it starts to rain. I'm holding the threads at the back, so this fabric stays in one place. Helps if you switch it on. It might also help if I plug it in. Let's see how well it did in a hurricane. Okay. There's the row of stitching in a straight stitch and the row of zigzags. Now I didn't get to set the tension properly on that one, so it's not really a good test. But what you could see is how much smoother this one works, and the fact that it doesn't have that whirring noise, which means this one's got a slightly better conditioned motor. It probably hasn't had quite such a hard life. Well, we're going to try again. I didn't give the Singer Stylist 476 a reasonable test when we were outside because it was blowing a hoolie and it was just about to rain, so I've come back inside. I'm in my usual surroundings of the mudroom. I can't actually remember what I said last, so I'm going to go back to the slides that I've got over here with my notes on, and we're going to start again with the 476. Now I think I mentioned that it's a zigzag only machine, and if you need a straight stitch you have to move your stitch width to 0. It takes Schmetch needles, which is yay. It does work, and it's got reverse. Now sometimes, depending on what mood it's in, it'll sometimes stick in reverse, and just like I rectified the problem with the 413, all you really need to do if you find your sewing machine's doing that, just turn your hand wheel either a quarter of a turn or half a turn just to advance it on a little bit, and you should find that your reverse button will pop out. and you'll be able to sew properly again. That is something that I'm looking at fixing or addressing at some point in the future, but as it is, it works quite well, so I'm not too worried about it. But let's see it in action and give it a better workout this time. Okay, so I'm going to hold the threads. I'm going to check out a straight stitch to start with. Okay, like I said with the last sewing machine, this fabric's a little bit slippy, so it's going off a little bit, but on the whole, it's pulling that through really well. Oh dear. Let's turn it round and give the zigzag another try. Now the tension was a little bit tight last time, so I'm going to try and loosen that off a little bit. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Oops, I think that might be a bit too loose. Let's give that a go. Make it a little bit bigger. Oops, getting a bit close to the edge there. Oh. It would help if you actually put it on the zigzag setting, wouldn't it? Try that one again, shall we? I'm going to put it back on straight stitch and then we're going to try the reverse. Okay, now reverse on this one is here, and you just push it. And it didn't stick that time, brilliant. Now let's take a look at the stitching this time round. Okay, there's the zigzag. That's slightly better with the tension loosened off. That's the back, and a straight stitch across the top. I even tried to upset it by turning it around a corner, and it's handled that really well, and that's the back. Now, one of the reasons why I was trying to do today's video outside was because I wanted to show you a side-by-side comparison of the two machines, which is difficult to do in the mudroom because I'm limited on space. I've already got two sewing machines blocking my front door here. Both of these machines are in fact very similar. So when it comes to picking one or the other, it's down to just a limited number of reasons why you'd want to go for either this one or that one. Now, as I've mentioned, the 476, which is this one at the back here, has got reverse, which, you know, is quite handy to have. 413 doesn't have reverse. This particular 413 has got a little bit of a motor problem, which, if it was me in the market and choosing between one of these machines, would steer me in the direction of the 476 because it's obviously had a slightly softer life. It hasn't been put through the ringer quite so much. Having said that, being similar machines and having a similar kind of internal design, they are both likely to suffer from the same issues. So if you're looking at having a motor fixed on this one, you might at some point need to have the motor fixed on that one. They both have plastic gears, so again, you might at some point in the future have to look at replacing some of the gears. The next thing that we need to cover for both these machines is cost. If we deal with this 413 first, it's had a hard life, the motor is probably toast, the cabinet is basic. It's only got the false drawer across the front, which means you haven't got any storage space for your supplies. and it doesn't have reverse. Now I've owned this machine for 2 or 3 days now, and I only paid $15 for it. Partly because it's a machine I don't have in my collection, mainly because I wanted to show you the kind of motor problems that you can experience with a second-hand machine, so that it makes it more obvious to you what it is that you're looking for or what you should be avoiding. You're welcome, by the way. If we zoom over to the 476 in the background, I've had this one for around about 2 years, possibly just under 2 years now. I actually paid just under $30 for it, and to be perfectly honest with you, in the condition it's in, it's working, it's got accessories with it, it has a slightly better table because it's got storage. That's about its money. You're not looking at paying much more for it than that. If either of these machines were in tip-top, pristine, hardly being used, immaculate condition, you might possibly be able to push this one up to what, $50, $60, if that. They aren't particularly popular with collectors. They're not particularly popular with sewists either, if I'm honest. They do have a little bit of a reputation of being linked with the Touch and Sew range of products, which I don't think is particularly fair on these, because they are pretty good working machines. The next thing that we need to be having a look at, are they worth buying, or even are they worth fixing? If you want a good, cheap, second-hand machine that you can fix relatively easily for a little cost, you could use it in its current condition and abuse it until it finally packs up, then yeah, go for it. As far as a second user machine goes, if all you really want is something that will stitch just the odd seam and you don't really want something long term, these are fantastic for that. If you're looking at fixing it up and selling it on for a profit, however, I really would recommend you don't bother. The thing is, what you're going to need to do is weigh up the cost of the parts that you're going to need to buy to get these back into tip-top working condition. On eBay at the moment, a replacement motor for this one is in the region of about $20 to $30, and it's actually a used motor. So if you were to go and buy that motor, you might possibly be buying a motor with the same problems as the one it's already got. Now I paid $15 for that. If I'm looking at forking out $20 to $30 for a motor for it, then it's going to put the price of this machine up to the region of about $45, which is fine if you're happy paying that to get it up and running. But if you're looking at selling it, you're not going to get much more than $45 for it anyway. So is it worth the effort? I don't think it is. I think if you do try to sell these and refurbish them and sell them on, I think you'd be looking at actually eating into your profit and making it not worth your while. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below to let me know if you've got either one of these two machines and how you get on with them, and if you've managed to do them up at a cost-effective price. If you like my videos, consider subscribing to my channel. There's a handy little icon down the bottom that will take you to the subscribe section, and click that little bell so that YouTube will give you a notification when I upload another one. Why not check out one of the other videos that I've got on my channel at the minute? You'll see a couple of links coming up at the side of the screen any minute now. Whichever video you go and check out, I hope to see you back here for the next one. In the meantime, whatever you're sewing with, wherever you're sewing, embrace your creativity and have fun. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.